about the very basics of JavaScript, right? So see, JavaScript is, of course, a language. It's a core language for web pages to work on. It's a language for basically web pages, right? So, and there are total of three languages which are considered to be the languages for web pages. Out of them one is HTML. The other two are of course HTML and CSS, right? But the purpose and objective of all three languages are completely different. For example, the purpose of the HTML language is to define the content and the structure of a web page. HTML helps us define the content and a structure of a web page, right? HTML stands for hypertext markup language. For example, you have different headings, you have different paragraphs, you have different divisions, you have different forms. All that comes under the HTML category. Similarly, CSS is there. CSS basically manages the presentation part, the look and feel part. How each and every component of a web page, will look like. How each and everything on a web page will look like. For example, the font. For example, the width of a box. For example, the margins, from the border. Right. And thereafter the height. I have got the paddings. Every attribute relates to the look and feel, the presentation part. Right. So these are the two web page languages. The third one for which we have designed this entire course, is basically the JavaScript. Now JavaScript runs in the background mainly, right? So JavaScript basically makes your web pages alive. It makes your web pages interactive. Whatever you want to perform on a web page, for example, you want to submit a button or submit a form, that submission happens with the help of JavaScript. For example, you want to expand the menu or you want to hide the menu, that happens with the help of JavaScript. For example, you want to download a file or you want to upload a file, that happens with the help of JavaScript. All in all, the web pages work because of JavaScript, right? We are ultimately concerned about how web pages will work. That happens with the help of JavaScript, right? So HTML only defines how the content and the structure of a web page. What will the web page have in terms of the texture, in terms of the text, and the the design part. Yeah, so in terms of the content or the now is it any better? Right. So CSS manages the presentation part and JavaScript makes the web pages alive. Every component of a web page works because of JavaScript, right? So that is the introduction part. The moment we are done with the introduction, then comes how JavaScript works, right? What makes them work? See, for JavaScript, web browser is the playground, web browser is the platform. Web browser is the arena on which the JavaScript code will work, right? So they work because web browsers have got JavaScript virtual machine engine, not Java virtual machine engine, JavaScript virtual machine engine, JVM. Every browser has got a JVM, which basically compiles your scripts and then if transpilation is required for TypeScript, transpilation is required, and then the execution works of JavaScript on the web browser because of this JavaScript virtual machine engine, which is embedded as part of every browser. Right. Now each and every browser have got their own JavaScript virtual machine engine. For example, V8 is the JavaScript virtual machine engine for Chrome browser, or Opera and Chrome basically has this V8 JVM. They share the same JavaScript virtual machine engine. Then you have got like I'm just telling you the names, like Spider Monkeys for the Mozilla Firefox. Mozilla Firefox, JavaScript keyword is basically patent with Firefox browser. This JavaScript word is actually belongs to Mozilla Firefox, and Mozilla Firefox is the best browser for any JavaScript to work. But it's considered to be best, but now every browser supports all functionality. It was the thing of a past that one functionality used to work on one browser, the other functionality used to work on another browser, for which there were different methods. If you are aware about attach event, such kind of a method, they used to vary from browser to browser. Now that story is all gone. Every browser supports JavaScript, TypeScript functionality. So we should know V8 is the JavaScript virtual machine engine for Chrome and the Opera browser. Spider Monkey is the JavaScript virtual machine engine for the Firefox browser. Similarly, we have got the Trident and earlier Chakra was there. Now Chakra Core is there for Internet Edge, for Edge basically, Microsoft Edge browser. Similarly, there is this browser with the name Squirrelfish for Safari. Right. So as I was saying, JavaScript works because of these JavaScript, these JavaScript virtual machine engine, which is embedded as part of their corresponding browser. Right. And we will have a library with the same name, V8. We will see that in Node.js, that if we have to do something specific related to a browser, there is a associated library with the same name. Right. So we just learned the purpose of JavaScript, and we have learned how JavaScript works basically. Right. That this is the job of a JavaScript virtual machine engine, which makes the JavaScript work. Right. So now we have taken few examples, the abilities of JavaScript basically, that if I have to download, upload file, if I have to change the existing content, or if I have to modify the styles, if I have to run on the mouse clicks. Right. These are very common example of JavaScript. What do I want to do when a keyboard key is pressed? But there are certain inabilities also, which as a programmer we should know, that we don't have the access to the user machine. Right? We cannot read or write arbitrary files on the hard drive. We cannot copy them. We cannot execute any program. Similarly, we should know there is something called as same origin policy. That if I have got Gmail browser running as part of one tab, and I have Yahoo mail engine running as part of another tab, they can't talk to each other. Right? There is something called as same origin policy, where port number, domain name, and the protocol, they should match for browser to communicate with each other. Right. Similarly, we don't have the ability to access the microphone or the camera of any machine, unless and until you must have seen that explicit permissions are being taken for the same. Right. So these are a few basic points that we should know that now apart from that there is advancement. For example, this is just a theoretical part that something called as CoffeeScript is there, you know which is which has given us a very short syntax of JavaScript, which is majorly used by Ruby devs. Similarly, TypeScript is there, strict data typing has come, multiple features TypeScript has given, which is very popular, which we will also talk about. TypeScript is actually created by Microsoft. Then there are two more languages like TypeScript, Flow and Dart. Right. Flow basically is developed by Facebook. Now flows add another data types, according to the Facebook application. Similarly, Dart is created by Google for their, it has its own standalone engine which runs in even in mobile apps also. Again, they all do the transpilation. They all say that we will convert the basic CoffeeScript, TypeScript, Flow or Dart languages ultimately to JavaScript only. JavaScript code works as part of all these languages. Right. After that, after knowing the purpose, how it works, inabilities and the advancements over JavaScript, the last theoretical part, let's talk about the history of JavaScript. In 1995, it was being created for Netscape Navigator browser. Netscape Navigator 2.0 browser. Right. Now, JavaScript came in the same year when Java language came in 1995. The original name of JavaScript was LiveScript. But to enjoy the bandwagon of Java language, they named it as JavaScript, which was criticized later on because Java and JavaScript are entirely two different languages. Their purpose, their objective is completely different. Right. So, and parallelly, Internet Explorer browser was there, which used to create its own scripting language with the name JScript. So till 1999, Netscape Navigator and Internet Explorer, they used to release the different versions of this LiveScript or JavaScript and JScript. Major release came in the year 2009, when actually after that, for JavaScript in the year 1999, a standardized body was created with the name ECMAScript. ECMAScript standardized body was created to manage or to give updates on this JavaScript language. That is why JavaScript is also known as ECMAScript. That is why all updates of JavaScript is now considered as ES5 or ES6, things like that. In year 2009, ES5 version came in. The most popular release came in the month of June in the year 2015. That is ES6. Right. Right. So now this ECMAScript standardized body manages this language. Right. So we will learn all the latest advancements of ES6. Right. Yeah, these are, you can say these are different, different releases of JavaScript. There are different features that are being introduced as part of these versions of JavaScript or ECMAScript, right? So let's, now start the language. Now let's see how this language actually works. So, ES6 has given us some 10 additional concepts, right? So we'll start with the first one, which is constants. You know, constants have come to JavaScript because of ECMAScript 6 version, right? So, which means, if it is defined, redefinition is not possible. It will trigger the error. So we can go to our browser. We have this fiddle editor. I can create a constant like this, that I have a constant with the name, value. If I give a value 4, I can print the value like this. But the moment I try to change the value, it will give me an error. Right, so this is constant. So if I uncomment this, it says assignment to a constant variable, which is not possible. Right, so const keyword. Then came the let keyword. Right. See, old school JavaScript says there is only var keyword. But now in addition to var, you have got let and const also. So let helps you declare variable in a block scope. The moment block is over, the life of let variable finishes. It is not, the let variables are not valid after a block is over. Now let me show you the example. Right. So what is a block? In every language, this is a block. So if I create a value variable with 10, inside the block I can print this value too. But if I try to print this value too, outside this block, I will get this error that value 2 is not defined. Inside a block, this keyword exists. This keyword is valid. Even if I have an inner block, if I try to create a new variable, the same variable with different value, if I try to print inside the block, it will give me 20. Right, but the moment I come outside, it will fall back to its original block, which is 10. So this block does not matter to, this inner block does not matter to the outer block. You see, outer it is 10, inner it is 20. So if I would have said outer block, it would have given me 10 only. Even though same variable is declared inside an inner block also. Right? The same is not true for constant. Constant, if you try to change anywhere, you'll get an error. Even if you try to change here, I will get an error. So these two, constant and let keyword, they are given to us by ES6. ES6 have introduced a new language also. This TypeScript is actually the advancement over ES6. Right. So these two features have come. And then a major feature has come called arrow functions. Now I will tell you about function declaration. I will tell you about function definition. Right? I will also tell you about new function syntax. Right? If Mhm. Yeah, these are only to declare variables, but they're Mhm. So no. So that what happens is you must have seen something like this. So if I cut this code, if I paste it over here, if I go to the environment, you must have seen something like this. Function. This you must have seen like this. This way, if Mhm. So the objective of constant is like this only, whether it is, so if you have seen final keyword in Java, final keyword can be used with variable, with class, with function. Same is with constant also. You know, that functionality is not going to differ. It is going to remain the same throughout the application. Right? But I will talk about this const keyword with functions, right? I will talk about that. I- Right. So if you simply type JavaScript Fiddle Chrome, you'll get this editor. Or if in the videos I have taken the example of this play code editor also. Play code editor. You can use play code also. Right. So the third advancement that has come is called arrow function. Right. Now arrow function, you can define the entire function in a same line using arrow. For example, you know, uh, for example, this let keyword, const keyword, or var keyword. I'm simply saying over here that I will be giving you a parameter a. You please add 1 to it. So this equal to greater than sign is called as an arrow function. This is a parameter to a function, and this is the functionality of a function. So if I give 5 value to this variable x, you know, it will give me the output 6. Right. S- Yeah, no. I'm simply saying this x is a function that accepts a parameter and return the incremented value. So the entire function resides in x. It accepts a parameter, and this is a functionality which is executed as part of this function. So that is why I gave a parameter, let's say 10. It added 1 to it and it gave me output 11. And now same thing I can do with arrays. If you remember square bracket, if I say 1 comma 2 comma 3 to 3 comma 4, this is an array. I am using for each with the array. Here I am saying I will be giving you an input, and you need to multiply or give me a square root value for the same. So for my understanding, I am giving the functionality like this. So now the output will be 1 is equal to 1, 2 is equal to 4, 3 is equal to 9 and 4 is equal to 16. So basically this is an array. For each is used for each and every element of an array. Console log each and every element of the array and giving a square root back for that. This is just an introduction to arrow function. We will talk about arrow function in detail in the coming classes also. Right, but you can see that I am writing down an entire functionality in a single line. You know, if I could have given this functionality like this also, that it accepts a parameter and I need to return a plus 1. You know, same functionality can be written like this also. And here I could have called this, and you know, this might confuse you initially, but you need to get yourself accustomed with the same. 21 is the output. Same thing, either I say it like this or I say it like this. You know, this is the arrow function. No, it is not at all mandatory. You know, you can simply print it also. I'm just using return to show something in back. I could have used alert function or console log also. So now one last thing, let's say I have got, you know, 15, 20, 45, 65, 2, and I want to sort them, right? So I thought of using an arrow function that I will be giving you two parameters, a comma b or x comma y, and a minus b, you know, will help you to sort this entire array. Right, now if I put this in console log, right, if I put this entire thing in console log, you see it has sorted the same for us, 2, 15, 20, 45, 65. My basic point to you is you need to get yourself used to with this kind of a functionality. And as I said, I will be talking a lot more about arrow function. But this is a new way of writing functions in JavaScript or TypeScript. And functions are not that straightforward in JavaScript or TypeScript like it is in Java or other languages. Putting the data in ascending order. Yeah, a comma b, I mean first is 15, then is 20. You know, this way it will keep changing b. And the rule behind ascending order in any language is that either you get a positive result or you get a negative result or you get a 0. So if output is, let's say, positive, that means the left hand side value is greater than the right hand side value. Similarly, if output is negative, right hand side is greater than left hand side, 0, they both are equal. That is how sort function in every language works. So that is the reason I gave a minus b, because I knew this is how sort function will work. A will start with 15, b will 20, 20, 45, 65, 2. This is how sorting will work. Right. So arrow function, const keyword, let keyword, they have come as part of ES6. Then you have got something called as this default function parameter as part of ES6. Now what is default function parameter? So again, if I talk about arrow function, a comma b. Now b, I am saying, is by default it is 10, meaning if I have to return a multiplied b in the end, so here if I'm using return, I have to use this. uh, so this is a arrow function. So now if I simply call this entire function which resides in a variable x with a value, let's say 20, the output will be 200, because the default value for b is 10. If a default value for b is 2, the output will be 40. Yeah, so as I said that so yeah. Yeah, so x is a function that accepts two parameter a and b, and it returns the multiplied value of a and b basically. This yeah, this is right. But there is, a little complexity attached to it. Meaning what? Meaning if I give a default value to first parameter, then what? So if I say the default value to first parameter is 3, you know, and here I have given 20, I will get n because I have given first default value to first parameter, I have given only one parameter, so the output is not a number. So how shall I resolve that? In that case, I need to give undefined as the first value. Now the output is 60. Right. No. So if you have given no, so if you have given first parameter a default value, then if you don't provide it, then you will get an error. NaN is a computational. It is a computational error. NaN comes when you try to multiply number or string together, right? But the best part is NaN is a kind of a data type in JavaScript which we'll talk about. But here what we are seeing is that this way default values can be given at the time of function definition itself. If I would have given a default value to b, then this error will never have come, and output would have been 20 into 480. The only problem is that when you don't pass multiple, when situation like this happens. So this is the fourth one. The fifth one is known as rest function parameters, which is a little different from the fourth one basically. Fourth one we have learned about default function parameters. Right? We have seen how default values can be given to parameters. Then comes rest function parameters, which is little different from default function parameters. Again, an ES6 feature. So now again the entire functionality resides in this variable x. Here I am saying I will be giving you two parameters. But if you see something like this, 3 dots args, this is called as rest function parameter, meaning you can pass 2 or 20, it does not matter to this function. For example, if as part of a function definition, if I say that value of a is this and value of b is this, rest you have passed, let's say you have passed these you have passed these many number of more arguments. So now this is called as a rest function parameter. Now if I call x with 2 comma 3, it will say a is 2, b is 3, and args dot length, which should be 0 plus 0 more arguments are there. But if I give 2 comma to 3 comma 5 comma 6 comma 7, it will say a is 2, b is 3, but 3 more arguments are there. So in default function parameters, we were giving a default value to the parameters. Here we are saying there is no limitation on the number of parameters. Right. Similar thing exists in Python also. Similar thing exists in yeah. So this is called as rest function. So similar thing exists in other languages also. How you can how you can expand the functionality of one single line of a code, right? Then comes string templating. I was talking about in the class string templating. Now let's take the example of a string templating. That let's say I have got a new variable name ABC. This is a variable, and I have another variable with the name hi message. So this is called as a backtick. Hi user $, figure bracket, name variable. If I print this hi message, it will print me hi user name, hi user ABC. Now string templating refers to interpolating the variables. This is called as interpolation of variables or interpolation of expressions. Basically in simple language, how you can insert a string value as part of any other string without using any other class, right? But remember, it happens with backtick only, not with single quote or double quote or triple quote. If you try, right, this is like concatenation itself, right? You can concatenate any value, right? Even if you say 3 plus 4, the output is 7. You have performed a mathematical operation also, right? If I want to take more examples, I can take any number of examples. For example, I can take that again there is a function that accepts a parameter, and it will multiply a with 4 and give you the output back. Now there is another variable with, let's say, value 5. Now I thought of using this string templating. So here I am saying execution. This function, first $, this function accepts this value called v. If I print this now, x with the value, so if I run this x, what does it do? It prints 20. 5 into 4, 20. Right? This one, this one is this one. You should not say string literal. This is string templating. I mean, this feature is called as string templating. Literal is a constant. Yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah. Either I say, yeah. It does not matter whether I name a parameter with the name v or any other alphabet. It just need to accept one parameter. That's it. Yeah, I was saying that this function x wants to accept one parameter, right? Now, if I create another parameter with any other alphabet, that name of an alphabet does not matter, right? So that is known as string templating. So we have talked about 6 features right now. Starting with const, let, arrow function, default function parameter, rest function parameters, and string templating. Now we are left with object properties, class creation, constructors, inheritance, and getter setter function. Object properties, class creation, constructors, and getter setter functions. Now if you're fine, I can continue, or if you want to talk about object property, class, constructor, inheritance, getter setter functions, and the var keyword and the data types in some other session, in the next session, however you want, I can do that. I just want that you should be able to grasp things, so your choice. Alright, let's talk about object properties. So first of all, objects in JavaScript or TypeScript, they are identified by this figure bracket. If you have seen JSON, every object is enclosed within this figure bracket or curly braces. An object is basically a combination of key value pair, and key and value are segregated by this, this colon thing, right? So now object properties are newly added TypeScript feature, right? Let me just put this over there first. Now see, I have got 2 key value pair combination, one A1 with value 10 and one B with value high. These 2 values are there, A with value 10, B with value high. Now this is my object, as I told you that object is recognized using figure bracket or curly braces. So the old way was, ES5 way was A1 colon A1 and B colon B. This is an object. If I try to print this object, it will show me A1 as 10 and B1 as high. You see, this is how a JSON object looks like. A1 10, B high. Now even if I don't give like this, ES6 says this is also an object. You can add multiple key value pair like this. Now I have just added 2 key value pair combination as part of an object called obj, right? Thereafter I could have added more inside, let's say within an array. So as part of an array, I am saying, let's say A2 plus B colon 30. So here you have A1B and this A2, or forget about this one. Let me add a complete thing. So now let's create another object. Figure bracket. A1 and B I am taking as it is. But the third thing that I'm going to put is, let's say a function itself. Function name ABC. Function accepts a parameter V. And function simply adds, V plus 4. That can also be accommodated inside the object. But what we have learned is how, this is how we can add key value pair combination to the arrays. Now, using this object, I can call this function called ABC with a value, let's say, called 10. And if I print it via console log, it should add 4 to it. And it gives me the output 14. So object properties have extended to key value pair combination, even functions also. So we have just taken an introduction on arrow function, introduction on object. Object is a very large topic in JavaScript or TypeScript. Similarly, arrow functions or basic function is also a very large topic in JavaScript or TypeScript.